All right, so Senator John Kennedy publicly said he's tired of trying to explain behavior that is inexplicable, calls Kristi Noem's spending a spending porn, and then refuses 3 separate times to say he has confidence in her. The polite thing to do is ask what he of your tax dollars on ads featuring herself riding a horse at Mount Rushmore, gave the contract to a company that, depending on how you count, existed somewhere between 7 days and 11 days before receiving it, which, either way, is not enough time to build a company capable of handling hundreds of millions of dollars in government work, then told Congress that the president approved all of it, which is apparently the one thing in Washington that will actually get you fired. So, what you're about to watch is Senator John Kennedy of Louisiana stopping in the Capitol, talking to CNN's Manu Raju in increasingly colorful terms, why he can't bring himself to say he supports the woman he voted to approve as Secretary of Homeland Security. He uses the phrase spending porn, mentions a company formed just days before it received a $143 million government contract, and compares himself to a dog avoiding a fire hydrant, which is honestly a more coherent explanation of Washington politics than I've heard in years. The kicker, and I'm going to need you to sit with this, is that by the time Kennedy is talking to Raju, Trump has already gotten on the phone with Kennedy the night before and, quote, was not a happy cowboy. Let's watch what he says, and I will give you my take later.
Your exchange with Secretary Noem yesterday, do you have confidence in her leadership as Secretary of Homeland Security?
Look, it's not personal with the Secretary. If you were there, you know I congratulated her on her work executing the president's policy. My job is to provide oversight, Manu. If I see what I think is spending porn, I'm going to call it out. I don't care whose spending porn it is. $250 million is a lot of money. It'll pay for a lot of disaster relief. It'll pay for a lot of ICE agents. I asked the secretary about it. She told me that these contracts were bid out. My information is otherwise. I'm not saying she's wrong or right. I'm just telling you what my information is. Later in the hearing, she admitted to another senator that they were not bid out. They use subcontractors. Sometimes you use subcontractors to hide where the money's going. One of the major companies has no website, has no headquarters that I can tell, and was formed 11 days before they received the contract. Am I saying there's something untoward here? No, I don't have the information to say that. I'm saying it is my job to ask those questions. And the second thing that got and I noticed that the secretary basically said, if you're unhappy, take it up with President Trump. He approved all of this and implied in great detail. The impression I got was that he knew the amount, he knew the tenor and tone of the ads. I'm not going to, I don't talk about my conversations with the president, and I'm not going to start now. You know the president. I would encourage you to ask him next time you see him.
But do you have confidence in her,
I'm not going to answer that. That's not my decision.
But you voted to confirm her.
That's not my decision. If the president, that's up to the president. My job is to point out things that I think are detracting from our agenda, the president's agenda. I'm responsible for everything I say. If I make a mistake, I'm going to either own the words or say I made a mistake. I'm not going to blame it on the president. I'm not going to blame it on Stephen Miller. I'm not going to say the devil made me do it. I'm going to own up to it. And I don't like, we all saw the videos of the killings in Minneapolis. You can draw your own conclusions. And I trust the American people to make up their own minds. But the secretary said what she said about them. being part of domestic terrorism, as I recall. And she got, predictably, a lot of blowback. And then she said, big as Dallas, well, I don't say anything unless the president okays it and Stephen Miller okays it. Well, you know, I'm not going to get between a dog and a fire hydrant, but if I'm Mr. Miller and others, maybe even the president, for whom I don't speak, I'm going to go, no, wait a minute. I didn't say that. You said that. And you just add all of this up and the other turmoil, and it's been stuck in my craw. And I want to be a team player, and I want to secure the border, and I want to enforce our immigration laws. But I'm tired of trying to explain behavior that is inexplicable to me.
Well, if you had a chance to vote for her again, would you?
I'm not going to answer that, Manu. You can try 1,000 times, mate. Lots of luck to you. Okay?
All right, fair enough.
All right,
Thanks
see
for
you
your
later,
time.
guys.
See ya.
That careful, deliberate, I'm not going to answer that, Manu, lots of luck to you, is the political equivalent of someone packing their desk while their coworker is still in the meeting. And here's what you didn't know when you were watching it. Trump was already in the process of firing her. Trump announced on Truth Social that she is out as Secretary of Homeland Security, replaced by Oklahoma Senator Markwayne Mullin, effective March 31st. She is the first member of Trump's cabinet to be fired in his second term. And per CBS News, the immediate reason wasn't the $220 million. It wasn't even the contracts awarded without bidding. Her removal was largely due to her claim in testimony that Trump personally approved the ad campaign. That really upset POTUS, a White House official told reporters. In other words, she didn't get fired for the scheme, she got fired for telling on the guy who allegedly approved the scheme. Epic. Now, let's talk about what the scheme actually was, because this deserves to be stated plainly. The Department of Homeland Security awarded $220 million in contracts that were handed out without a public bidding process for an advertising campaign that prominently features Noem herself. Those contracts skipped the normal process where multiple companies compete for the work and were secretly awarded to companies with close ties to her and her political allies. The main recipient, a Delaware company called Safe America Media, was officially registered as a company on February 6th and received the contract just 7 to 8 days later. It has no website, no identifiable headquarters, and had never done work for the federal government before. And according to reporting from ProPublica, an investigative news outlet, it shares an address with a property owned by a longtime Republican political insider. By law, the secondary companies that get hired to actually do the work don't have to be listed in any public government spending records, which effectively allows the taxpayer money to disappear into a network nobody can track. The money that actually did get traced led somewhere very familiar. The main recipient then quietly passed a chunk of the money down to the strategy group. This is a practice called subcontracting, where the company that wins the contract quietly hires someone else to actually do the work. And the strategy group just happens to be a company whose CEO is married to her former spokesperson, Tricia McLaughlin, and which played a large part in her 2022 South Dakota governor's race. So to summarize the flow, your money went from the Department of Homeland Security to a company that didn't exist the week before, which then quietly routed it to a firm run by the husband of her own communications director, and none of that second transfer was required to show up anywhere the public could see. The audacity of calling it a competitive process, while the competition was apparently, does your CEO sleep next to my former spokesperson, is something I genuinely cannot explain to people at dinner parties without sounding like I'm making it up. Here's what the law requires. Under the Federal Acquisition Regulation, which is basically the rule book for how the government is supposed to spend your money, the government is generally required to open contracts up to fair competition, meaning you advertise the opportunity publicly, multiple companies submit bids, and you pick the best value. The Department of Homeland Security invoked urgency under a declared national emergency at the border as the reason for skipping that process entirely, which is a legal exception, but one that's supposed to be used for genuine emergencies, not as a hidden backdoor to funnel hundreds of millions of dollars to your political allies. According to Senator Welch's letter to the Department of Homeland Security's internal watchdog, each of the contracts listed urgency as the official reason for skipping the normal bidding process, using a category called other than full and open competition, and listed the Office of Public Affairs as the funding office, an office that was, until recently, run by McLaughlin herself. The person who ran the office that approved the emergency was married to the man whose company got the contract. I want to give you a moment with that sentence. And here's the proof that makes this all collapse. She sat before Congress and told Senator Kennedy the contracts were bid out. Kennedy said his information showed otherwise. And then, later in the very same hearing, she admitted to another senator that they were not bid out. She lied to a senator, got caught in the same hearing, then blamed the president for approving it, and the president responded by telling Kennedy he was not a happy cowboy, and then, before the week was out, firing her. The talking point you can use is this: she didn't fall on a sword. She handed it to someone else, and they handed it back. Here's why this matters, beyond the drama on Capitol Hill. On a personal level, $220 million is not an abstraction. As Kennedy himself noted in the hearing, that money would pay for a lot of immigration enforcement agents, a lot of disaster relief, the actual core functions of the Department of Homeland Security. The shutdown of the department entered its 20th day today, and she herself told Congress that 100,000 employees were temporarily sent home without pay, including those who work in cybersecurity and disaster relief. That claim is worth noting because independent government reporting puts the real number closer to 23,000. And at this point, her relationship with accurate numbers under oath is its own ongoing investigation. And during that shutdown, while workers went without pay, she was filming herself on a horse at Mount Rushmore for an ad. That was the emergency justification, a horse ad. On a bigger picture level, what her time in office demonstrated is how easily you can exploit the emergency contracting loophole to direct taxpayer money toward allies while keeping the paper trail hidden. Because the secondary companies hired to do the actual work are not required to be listed in any public government spending records, exactly where and to whom Safe America Media paid out its millions remains unclear. The Department of Homeland Security's internal watchdog accused her department of having systematically obstructed the work of the DHS Office of Inspector General. The watchdog said they were being deliberately blocked. The watchdog, the person whose entire job is to see where the money went, and for what. The Department of Homeland Security's defense, delivered to Fox News, is that the campaign caused 2.2 million undocumented immigrants to leave the country on their own and save taxpayers $39 billion. A figure that, if you'll note, is roughly 178 times what was spent, making it the best return on investment in the history of government spending, which feels like information that would have come up before a Senate hearing if it were real. She is gone. The ads are still running. The shell company is still on the books. And the woman who was filmed riding horses in them is now the special envoy for the Shield of the Americas. I truly, genuinely do not know what that means, but it sounds like the prize you win for getting caught. At least she didn't shoot the envoy. Senator Peter Welch, who has been pushing for a government watchdog investigation since November, put it cleanly in the hearing, per Reason's reporting. The decision to circumvent an open bidding process meant to ensure accountability, prevent corruption, and protect taxpayer money is highly suspect. When a Democratic senator and a Republican senator are independently using phrases like spending porn and I think there's going to be accountability in the same hearing, that's not political bickering. That's the sound of a thing falling apart from both ends at once. As of today, she is out. Markwayne Mullin is in, waiting to be approved by the Senate. The $220 million in contracts is still unresolved. The watchdog investigation Welch requested has not concluded. Safe America Media, the company that received $143 million while technically not yet existing, has still not explained where most of the money went. This isn't really about Noem. She was a symptom. The question this episode actually raises is, how many other national emergencies are being invoked right now to skip competitive bidding, route money through shell companies, and make sure the only paper trail that exists is the one the hired subcontractor doesn't have to file? Because the method she used, the emergency exception, the hidden subcontracting, the stonewalling of the government watchdog, that's not a bug that leaves with her. That's a feature that's still installed. Kennedy said in that hallway that he's tired of trying to explain behavior that is inexplicable. He voted to confirm her, he supported the administration, he sat through a year of it, and the best he could offer, standing there on Capitol Hill on the day she got fired, was, I don't know, Manu, you can try 1,000 times. At some point, the man who can't explain the behavior you voted to approve isn't the victim of the situation. He's a character in it. Though, I'll grant him this, at least he didn't take any of the horse ad money, that we know of. If you found this breakdown helpful, make sure to like the video and leave a comment with your thoughts. Share this with someone who needs to see it so more people can stay informed. Don't forget to subscribe and click the bell icon so you never miss a new video. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.